All right, welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. Wall Street Jesus here. Tuesday post-market. I'll call it the sweeper and sentiment recap because that's got a nice little ring to it. We get together every Tuesday. We do a lot of webinars. We do one on Saturday as well, 3 times a month for members, and once a month we open it up like we do here to everybody. Sometimes we'll throw one out on a Thursday when Lucci's around and decides to work. But for the most part, this is what we do on a Tuesday. We like to go over some of the activity we see early on in the week, okay, and maybe try to get a gauge of, things to keep an eye on for the rest of the week, okay? And we go over some of that. We look at sentiment, come up with some sort of game plan. Then I'll take some questions from you guys on any of the order flow you might be seeing, or if you're not a member, any names you might be curious about, whether they're seeing aggressive activity or not. The environment we're in now in this market, basically, again, we're in the heart of the summer here. We're officially into the summer. You can sense it. A lot of dead spots throughout the day. Volume's down as a whole. But even with flow, we'll go, sometimes you'll go a good 10 minutes without seeing any activity. You know what I mean? I got to check my internet signal to see if I'm not bumped off or not. But, that's the summer. There's nothing we can do about it. We could easily make the excuse, well, the summer, there's no action, and I'm going to take the whole summer off because the big guys don't play in the summer, which is, a crock of shit, excuse my French. There are opportunities out there. There are opportunities. You got to be a little more patient, I think, as far as allowing some things to set up. If you're an active trader, willing to get in and out quickly if the profit's there. There are definitely opportunities out there, and we're seeing it in flow. What we're seeing overall in flow, I can sum up in one phrase. And you guys hear me throw it around a lot because it's kind of how I put, order flow, as I refer to it, wise guy activity, into categories. And the category we're seeing now primarily, exclusively, is spec action. Okay, and in simple English, what spec action or activity, my definition of that is, it's weekly, front month, cheaper action, okay, that is looking for some sort of catalyst, whether it be, momentum into a specific group, news, an upgrade, chatter, or rumor, okay, and the reason I put this type of activity in its own categories because I know from my experience that when the big boys are serious about playing in the options market, when they really want to get behind a name, they're not doing it in weeklies. Okay, they'll really do it in front month. They'll go out, a couple months at the least. A lot of times even further than that, and they'll just annihilate a specific strike or two, okay? They don't come in just in the period of, let's say, one afternoon and buy, let's use where we are now time-wise, for example, weekly and July monthly calls inside, in a half hour, and that's basically their position, And you got to understand, too, you guys hear me use the term laying wood. Like, I like to see a player lay wood behind a bet. And that means, when I see that cheap premium, again, weekly, front month, out of the money stuff, that's what it is. It's spec activity, and there's nothing wrong with it, okay? I wouldn't, if I thought it was completely useless, I would treat it like, block earnings plays or anything like that. You know what I mean? If I thought there was no edge out of that action, I wouldn't pay any attention. I think there's a terrific edge out of that activity, but you have to understand the reasoning behind that activity. Okay, and it's more of a trade than trying to hit a home run. And we've gone over that numerous webinars where a lot of, especially newer traders that come into the options game, one of the big hurdles, one of the big problems they face is getting caught in the in-between, in limbo, kind of. Meaning they want to make that big hit and they want it in the shortest amount of time, right? So they want the home run and they want it in weeklies. And obviously that's the most difficult thing to do. You need a lot of luck behind catching those type of things. Okay, so from my experience, this type of action, I've seen a ton of it. These guys trade. If they catch a move intraday, sometimes we see them flip these weeklies. In other words, they'll buy, XYZ weeklies for 25 cents, and they're dumping them an hour later for 35 cents or already rolling out. So again, if you understand, what type of activity you're deciding to get behind, like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. And a lot of traders I know enjoy playing the spec action more than the legitimate sharp quality action. Why? Because things can materialize quicker. Okay, so even though they may be more prone to failure because of the short amount of time these bets incur, some traders enjoy it more because they can limit their risk and they understand they're not looking to cash each and every ticket, right? But at the same time, you can get, we went over this in the last week's webinar, you can step on a big winner by accident, like that one we were talking about, that ACXM, and, that's going to make up for all your losers and then some. So, and another thing I try to push with like this spec activity, make sure, like, especially if you're looking at other things on your end, make sure you like the name. For me, like the quality action, when we see that Campbell soup type of buying, I don't care what anybody tells me. You can tell me there's a golden death cross. You can tell me there's an Elliott wave number 5 to hell. You can tell me anything you want. If I see that type of activity in a name, I want my money right next to that, no matter what, no questions asked. Okay, where the spec action I treat different, where I pay more attention to the spot, right? I want to buy weakness, depending on the name. A lot of times, sometimes if I think like I can't get a decent move out of the name, I won't trade it. I'm talking about even day trade wise. So I'm a lot more picky when it comes to the spec activity. Okay, and what we usually see is a mixture of both, because what we usually see is we see that quality, selective quality action out there. And the way I'm usually positioned, those are my core swing positions. Okay, and then we'll see smaller spec activity around it, which is great because we know the big boys are doing some real buying and there's some spec action around it, which can take advantage of that momentum. This climate where we're in right now has been a little different, where there has been a lack of that quality buying. It's been predominantly spec activity. We were talking about this, if you guys remember, on last week's webinar. Right now, if you put a gun to my head and said, all right, what's the best action out there quality-wise that you're seeing off sweepers right now, there isn't one. There isn't one. I have my preferences as far as, again, the spec type action coming in, that I like, what's most aggressive, but they all resemble each other and they're all in the same category. I put every single one of these things in the same category. All right. And we'll go over some of the most recent names that have seen that type of activity. All right. So you could get an idea what names we saw today catch that type of activity. And if you guys remember, I don't know how many of you were on last week's webinar here, but we were going over exactly that. We were going over some of the names catching that action. If you guys remember, guys and girls, I call everybody guys. All right. For those, for you female out there, you know I love you. I'm not calling you guys by no means. I call everybody guys. I guess that's the Brooklyn in me. APTV. Okay. You guys remember this name? And you know, I didn't even take this name for a swing. I was a little gun shy. I loved the setup there. You could see, you know, pull back, how many days in a row, boom, 9 exhaustion, sweepers into that. Just the beauty of a setup. The one thing that scared me away was that they were lumping it in that auto sector, and you had that whole tariff crap going on, okay, which was weighing on it more than likely. But this was one of the better spec activity type names. Okay, they've really it was in an afternoon. I forgot what, this was the day right here on the 9. They came in really aggressive in an afternoon, hit it up numerous times. Okay, they never came back for it, unfortunately. That was one of the things I was hoping for, but that never materialized. But again, solid action, worth a play if you like the name, if you like the setup. And there you go. You get that lift. And that should be more than enough on these type of plays. Because if I'm not mistaken, were these Julys? I think these were Julys. But this is exactly, if you guys remember last week we were talking about, or if you remember this activity in this name, this is exactly the epitome of even the better type of spec activity out there. Okay. On the flip side, and there's been real nice winners for a trade. Okay, I'll give you one that has been a pain in the neck for some people in that same category. Trox, which is a chemical name. It's got some news around it. Don't ask me to make any sense of it. I try not to pay attention to that stuff, but you know, just can't get that momentum together. And similar action, you know, more than just one sweep. They were showing that it wasn't just hedging a short position or anything like that. They were committed to a spec play, whether they're looking for news, an upgrade, whatever the hell may be. They're looking for some sort of catalyst. But at the same time, they're not putting that big of money nominally behind it. Okay, so that's the big difference. You know, if you wonder what the big difference is between a Campbell's soup and a Trox, you know, this has been short dated. They're going all Julys. July's expiring what, a week or so? Okay, so, you know, my take is if they really want to make a bet on this name, they would go out to October, November and annihilate this thing. But instead, they just keep poking at Julys, you know, for a small dollar amount. So again, worth a play if you like the name, like the setup. Okay, maybe you get lucky, get that news, get that upgrade. It happens a lot. What we see a lot of times is the ones that fail end up like catching the catalyst, but because of the market conditions or maybe a bad reaction to the catalyst, that's why it fails. Okay, but usually, you know, a lot of times we see the catalyst. We end up seeing the catalyst. So this one hasn't performed as well. You know, not a disaster, but just can't seem to get that momentum going. We've seen a couple software names that have been fantastic for a trade. This MDSO, you guys remember we were talking about this last week, cloud/pharmaceutical. They hit it off a pullback here. They actually opened the largest position of open interest in this thing. It didn't take much because it doesn't catch a lot of activity. And again, tradable move. Now, and the trick is too, guys, not to jump around. You miss it, you miss it. Okay, like if I miss this name, I'm not coming up here now because I think there's still upside. If you're doing that, you're not doing it off the sweeper activity. You're doing it off something on your end, and I don't even want to know about it because I don't think you should ever do that. Okay, you miss it. There's more than enough action out there. There's more than enough, setups and names out there that you can wait and be patient for another one. All right, but that's one thing you don't want to do. You want to make sure you get in where you first start to see that activity boil up, so you can at least take some risk off when you get that lift, rather than start a position up here and get caught in some consolidation or pullback. All right, just a couple other quick examples. Here's one that I did play. Doesn't look too hot now, but I'm out of it. JD was a nice trade for me. Actually, the next day, we caught some news and we got a Nigerian pump out of it. I sold right into that. This, I didn't play weeklies. Oh, they were last week for this week expiration. So I was just looking for that pop and I'm selling into it. Again, a lot different than some of the other stuff we've been talking about in prior webinars, where I'm trying to be patient and look for a bigger move and willing to give up some of these smaller, shorter term pops. But this JD activity was straight up spec action. Straight up spec action. Weekly, bi-weekly, front month, They came in again, 1/2 hour in the afternoon, scrambled around, swept up some calls, and that's it. All right, so this was another one that was a decent trade, one that I had as well. I'm trying to think of, well, anyhow, you got the point. There's been several names like this. This ACXM was one of the bigger winners just yesterday. And here's how a lot of us play it anyway. IQ caught some action like that. Some of us day traded it. Excuse my English. Some of us took a shot holding it, looking for more. But these are weeklies. These are weeklies. All right. And I posted on Twitter, so the type of action it caught, right? Mostly weekly, front month. And you could see it materialize as soon as maybe if I go to 5 minute, you could see it better. Hold on. All right, so this should be yesterday here. And that's basically where they got in. Stock was doing its normal thing. And then it's almost like a swarm of these little sweepers come in and they create instant momentum off the accumulation. And, sometimes you get a big enough move for a day trade. Sometimes you can hold it a little bit more and get some more if you're looking to take on some risk overnight for a couple days. Okay, so this IQ, I don't know, could have more upside. They were weeklies. Had a little bull flow today, nothing like yesterday. Still looks pretty good. Due for a squeeze here. And tech was so-so today, so it could get hot. Today, what do we see? Today we saw, I only traded a couple names today. It was pretty quiet in the afternoon. NVIDIA. So NVIDIA, what happened was NVIDIA saw some activity weekly, some Julys, even what looked like some earnings activity that caught earnings. But again, if you were correct as far as entry, and that's where it doesn't have to be the first sweeper, but you guys know what I'm talking about. That first round of sweeper activity that comes in before the move stems up, that's where you want your entry, whether it's the equity or, calls if you're playing the options. And I actually traded this. I don't trade NVIDIA too much, but today I was looking for some semi flow because the semis have been whacked, hoping I can get a squeeze. And this one actually had a nice morning. Fizzled out in the afternoon. Maybe there's some more upside there. NVIDIA looks solid, up a couple of days with today. What else did I play this morning? I'm trying to think. I played NVIDIA was the best of the spec action. Here was the best action of the afternoon. And here, this is the epitome of what I'm talking about, of the climate we're in. APRN. All right, we've been seeing some bull flow in APRN here and there. Honestly, today probably the most aggressive of it. And they came in today in the afternoon scrambling for any bullish exposure they can find. They played August. I think August was the top line there. October's, some smaller July stuff, and you could see a name that's been acting a lot better. This thing has been a disaster, one of the worst IPOs ever. Okay, so they've been playing for a squeeze and they've been getting it there. So we'll see maybe if this gets hot. Yeah, it's a $3 stock, so you got to like this to like it. GoPro, we saw a little bit of action in recently. I'm sure you guys saw me post that on Twitter for those of you not in the room. Trying to consolidate here a little bit. A lot of the action out in October. All right, so there's some time there. You may have time to keep an eye on it. Here's my one gripe with some of these things. I don't like being this. I know it doesn't look late in the rally, but it's good that this is consolidating. I want to catch it before these things start to tilt too much, or off a pull like we saw in that, like this APTV or even the IQ. I feel better about, rather than coming late into that leg higher. Because I like to squeeze off this type of activity. What names are you guys throwing around there? PANW. I don't remember seeing any activity there. It could have. A lot of names are catching action. It's just a matter of whether it's notable for me to take notice or not. Yeah, Huya, I didn't play it. That's had some bullish activity. Similar setup to the IQ. There was not an order there that I was impressed by. Basically, it's been flow. So why was it ugly today? I guess maybe because it was so beautiful yesterday. That's the thing you guys got to keep in mind here. I think that's, we've been pushing this for so long, but it goes on deaf ears. If you're going to chase moves, this cannot bother you this day. You understand? Stocks don't go up or rarely go up in a straight line. If it happens and you're involved in it, you got lucky. Don't expect it to happen continuously. For me, if I didn't buy it here, I would like a pullback like we saw today before I chase this. Sometimes I like pullbacks, even if they're at little higher levels, at least I'm buying off a pullback. I don't like to chase green. I don't like to chase green because, again, I don't blame you. Sitting through this is not that enjoyable. But if you're going to chase green, you got to expect to sit through that often, in my opinion. That cannot bother you. And I see a lot of you guys out there, it bothers you guys a lot. So my biggest recommendation, my best advice that I would give you guys, if stuff like this bothers you, is buy off pullbacks. Buy off pullbacks. You're not gonna solve the problem, obviously. You're gonna be in losers that pull back. But when you chase green, a lot of times this happens. This happens a lot of times. Like NVIDIA here. All right. If NVIDIA, let's say, is up tomorrow morning, excuse me, is up tomorrow morning and reverses and pauses, would that shock you? It wouldn't shock me after a lift like this. It's normal. Look like here. Couple of days up in a row, this day was up, and look what she did. reversed, closed down, probably shook out everybody and their mother, and then traded higher again. You know, it's normal, especially for stocks that can move. So, you know, that's one of the reasons I don't like to chase the move, especially for swings. You know, day trade, you could stop yourself out. But swing trade, you know, it's a little more difficult. Yeah, and that name exactly, Frank. That name, Huya, looks like a crazy name. What is it? A Chinese name? You know, I know from that IQ that I follow, that thing is green red 95 times a day. Chinese IPO. Yeah, so that's what the IQ is, you know? So these stocks move, guys. And on an intraday basis, especially on an intraday basis, and again, I share what the way I trade off this stuff, and maybe you guys can pull bits and pieces to apply it to your style. But I'll give you an example, okay? Like NVIDIA, all right? I played into a little green there, all right? But that was early morning, okay? So I see some NVIDIA flow come in. As long as the stock's not up $4, you know, where I'm obviously chasing, I think it was up 80 cents, maybe, if that. You know, I'm a little looser. I'm willing to play a little bit of green there. But as the day progresses, as the day goes on, okay, especially days like today where the flow, the volumes, I'm looking for weakness for the most part. That's where I think the opportunities are in these low volume markets. You know, like what pissed me off today is we had a nice fade. Where am I? I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. You guys in the room know what I'm talking about. This fade right here, we had a real nice fade here. And this would have been a perfect spot where there would have been some call sweeper activity. You see that right where that 9 clicked here? If there's some sweeper activity there on the call side, that's where, you know, that's where I like to do some work. That's where I like to look for entries. So the same thing like individual names. I don't like to chase the move. Like up here, I won't come in here late in the move, but I'll look for little pullbacks throughout the day, little fades. And if it catches action, yeah, that's where I'm interested. Because again, I'm looking for the sweepers to create momentum. And if they can change a trend there for me, that's where I feel I can get the biggest bang for my buck. You know, so that's one thing you got to be careful of in this type of tape. And especially we've been going up several days in a row. You got to be careful with chasing because there's going to be a lot of fades out there, especially with, I don't know if you guys are aware, but sentiment has been pretty bullish. Some of the short-term indicators we look at for good reason. All right. So at the least, what that tells us is that there's going to be some intraday pockets where they shake people out. You know, especially from this point. You know, at the least, when you come off a move like this. So some of the, I hate the term easy money, but you guys know what I mean. Some of the juicy stuff is gone now, and now there's a little more risk. You want to be a little more tactical. You want to be, you know, you want to be quicker. You want to be a little more selective as far as especially chasing concern. You know, you don't want to chase too many of these moves. And then what happens is we're going to find a spot here where this thing takes a breather. And then, you know, and then we'll see what the flow looks like from there. Maybe we pull back, maybe we just go sideways, you know, something like this, possibly. But ultimately, there's going to be something like that ahead here. Now, that's the overall market, okay? Hopefully, there are individual names, you know, that do not look as scorched as this, where we can find some opportunities. So I'm trying to think of the other names I played. But anyway, nothing out of today's action is, I didn't swing anything today, okay? I didn't think anything was swing worthy unless maybe you are bullish NVIDIA and you're using that spec activity as confirmation as an indicator. You got the apron, whatever. There was no quality out there again. So you got to pick your spots here. What are you guys looking at? You guys anything exciting or looking at anything exciting here? IQ, in my opinion, IQ was worth a swing off yesterday's action. Okay, I don't know where the calls are now compared to yesterday. Yeah, I don't really pay too much attention to that, but when the action came in yesterday into IQ, I felt it was aggressive enough for it to be worth a swing off this spot. Okay, now, worth the swing what? What are you looking for? You know what I mean? They're weeklies. You understand? So don't expect new highs. I think you can see more upside. That's my gut, my opinion. Honestly, who has a clue? I'm just giving you my opinion. But all I can tell you is that the weekly activity, the sweeper activity that came into weeklies yesterday was aggressive enough to where if you said, Jesus, I'm going to roll the dice and take a swing for a couple days, it was worth it. It was definitely worth a day trade. You know what I mean? And a lot of us did that. And some people took it for a swing. So without a doubt. I don't know where those calls are compared to where they were yesterday. They might be at the same spot, right? I don't know. What was IQ down today? 65 cents. She moved about $1, I think, off yesterday. So it might be at the same spot with time value and all that stuff. Yeah, probably same price, right? Around the same price. Because this is where the action came in. So same stuff. But again, it's, I forgot who asked the question. It's weekly activity. Those, they go to zero or you make some money on. There's no, I'm going to size up and stop myself out in IQ weeklies. That's not going to happen. Groupon. Yeah, that's interesting, Jason. You bring up that name. That name has seen action. I'll be honest with you, I've been ignoring a lot of it. And then over the weekend, caught some news that they're putting the company up for sale. So we've been seeing some October buying come in after that. We've been seeing a lot of these dogs, right? These disaster single-digit names seeing action. Apron, Groupon, Zynga. You guys remember Zynga? Those type of names. It could be too, we're in earnings season officially, right? So could be that shorts are just, hedging and stuff like that, or looking for some bullish exposure. So, but we are seeing names in it. Yeah, so the Groupon, the news is out there. Okay, so keep that in mind. We're not the only ones who know about it anymore. But there is some October buying. There was some more today in that Groupon. Who else? What other names we got here? Hold on. Was Apron a buyout rumor? Today, I didn't hear anything on it. Was there a rumor? I didn't hear a rumor, but you could be right. They were a buyout rumor. There was some chatter back, what was it, earlier in the year about Apron, their target for an acquisition and blah, blah, blah. I didn't hear anything today off the action, but they got pretty aggressive coming in here. So listen, if you play these little guys, it's definitely worth keeping an eye on. Definitely worth keeping an eye on, because they came in pretty aggressively here. They came in pretty aggressively. All right. I would like it even better if there wasn't a rumor out there today. So if anybody could confirm that, that would be great. But worth, again, even if you don't play these things, they're worth keeping an eye on. They're always worth keeping an eye on, You got names too. Like, for example, the software names that were red hot, they pulled back today. This one, Coop, this caught some decent action. I didn't like the spot, so that's why I didn't play it. You know, caught it here, I think it was. And you had 1, 2 more days of rally, and then back to the same spot. But look at a strong name, Coop. The ZS, that's got a couple of analyst meetings coming up. So worth keeping an eye on off today's dip. Oh, that's what I traded today. What an idiot I am. I traded this into some weakness. Had a nice bounce. I didn't even realize it closed down $1.30. Had an intraday bounce, and I get sold off after that. Yeah. Wow. So this is a name you guys might want to keep an eye on. ZS, software name, Zscaler. They got some analyst meetings going on here in the next couple of days. I think today and tomorrow, from what I read. Another name that, wow, I didn't see this. I saw it down, but I didn't see this. Doku. Down 3, right back to where she started. So you can see, what was that? 52 to 56, and then whoop, right back to 52. So I'd be looking for action in some of these names. Yeah, the MDSO we looked at earlier, that had less of a pullback than the others, but a little pullback there. You got to watch for earnings too, guys. You know, there's a lot of risk out here on all these things. You got earnings too. This name, HDP, they got a pile of August calls. Here's my prediction is they rotate back into some of these names because these names were all down today. Box. So keep an eye on action there, especially if you got some weakness tomorrow, the next day for a quick trade type thing. I like that they've come in. Quick trade. MDB. Oh, yeah, that's another one, MDB, right? There's a lot of them that MD. Wow, that didn't pull back that much today. What a nice move off that pull, huh, Gordon? Look at that. Yeah. I wish personally, guys, and you guys in the room know because I've said this numerous times like a broken record, I wanted missiles to come into these spots. But maybe the guys who are launching the missiles are on the beach taking the sun. Yeah, Boeing actually had some action again today. You got earnings there. I see it off a little in the aftermarket. The other thing too, Gordon, you got a little bit of a ramp there. You know, I'm not a big fan of chasing that. I'd rather see it come in and they hit it there on some weakness. But you got earnings. You know, you got earnings. Unless you think you can catch a move prior to numbers, that's the only way to play it. But personally, I have to buy weakness anyway, Gordon. You know, I have to buy weakness, so I feel like I got enough room. See, what I'm worried about with Boeing is, let's say here you like the name, okay? It looks decent, but the problem is because it's been up for 3-4 days in a row, decent move, you get a little more upside, and then an overdue wash comes, and then you got earnings to worry about. You know what I mean? So you don't have enough time as it is, and especially off a move already. So even though, like Boeing, for example, didn't see the action there, you know, where I'm pointing now, but that's the ideal spot there, Gordon. You know, right there. That's where, you know, like, again, that APTV, the IQ, even though it's spec action, you know, the spot is decent. You know, so, for example, that Boeing order comes into IQ at this spot, that looks really good to me. You know, because you've had the wash there. And basically the sweeper activity is giving you a heads up that there's a chance the selling may be done and there may be a squeeze. That's the edge. That's our edge. Yeah, on Twitter I mentioned the word missiles. I haven't mentioned it in a while because there haven't been many missiles, but you know, I mentioned the word missiles a lot, or I'll just, you know, I'll say it in normal English, that, you know, they're tattooing something, you know, they're loading up on something. But the definition of missiles, my definition of missiles, for example, take any name. Let's say the apron we saw today. Okay. Instead of them buying, you know, calls for 25, 30 cents, where let's say they buy 1,000 and, you know, it's a $30,000 bet. Okay. They're sweeping as aggressively as that and spending millions. Big Mama Jama, Melissa says. That's another way to phrase it. You know, so again, I don't know, Rick, if you saw the Campbell Soup activity. You know, basically, you know, Campbell Soup, there's some open interest positions out there. They created the largest position of open interest in November calls in a period of a week and change. You know, that's my definition of missiles. That's win or lose. There's no doubt in my mind what that action is trying to accomplish. What those players, that player, that syndicate, what it's trying to accomplish. You know, that's what basically those bull missiles tell me. Again, it's got nothing to do win or lose. I know that sounds ridiculous. I tried to tell you guys the last time. Sometimes I get the reason why that player was loading up, and because of the market conditions, it didn't pan out. You know, that's why there's no guarantees in this game. But I feel good when I see missiles and I see ultimately the catalyst, the reason why they were launching those missiles. And when you see missiles, a lot of times you always get the reason why. If you look at like Campbell Soup, you know, we got that news that the company was being put up for sale, right? That was the news. Ultimately, that came out. The EA back in the day with the Star Wars thing, there was a big fund manager who bought up all that weakness and took a position. You know, you always get that headline. You always get that headline, that aha moment where you say, oh, that's why. So, but, you know, they go down. There's a hell of a lot of winners and losers, I'll tell you that much. But sometimes they go down. PayPal, if you remember the PayPal, you know, they made that acquisition. They stole that acquisition from Square, which ended up being a pretty big deal, what the street thought. So that was likely the catalyst on top of a huge analyst day that they had. So, yeah, that's the big money. When the big money believes in the name, when they got confidence in the name, they unleash the fury. They unleash the fury. Market off a bit, what, in the aftermarket a little bit? Yeah, as far as the overall market, and I don't think we should get too wrapped up in it unless you're a trader of SPY and ES. If you're a trader of SPY and ES, right now is not the time to start looking for a long entry here. You know, you got sentiment a bit hot. We've had a nice rally. You could see just common sense. You know, so it's a spot to chill out, let things settle a bit. The reason why I think we shouldn't get too wrapped up in the overall market is because not everything rallied like this. You know what I mean? Not everything rallied significantly like this. You know, if you look at, like, for example, IQ, okay, granted, it's off a monster rally. But while the market's been rallying here, you know, this doesn't look like SPY. You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to get at here is, even if the market comes in and flattens out, pullback, sideways, consolidation, whatever the case may be, even though it's not an ideal long setup for the overall market, you could still find individual names that may outperform. You know, and that's kind of what we've been seeing on a smaller scale at times, but kind of what we've been seeing. You know, that rotation. So if you look, like, even the semis, you know, they've been godforsaken awful. So, for example, same thing. You see you see some action come in off this pullback down here. You know, even if the market is due for some consolidation, this thing can outperform off a squeeze. You know, and they all do the same thing. Like, guys, you remember the utilities? Remember the utilities? Nobody wanted them, right? Sentiment-wise, they were washed out. Then you see some utility flow come in, bing, bang, boom, and this goes from bearish extreme on the sentiment front to bullish extreme, where you can't touch it. You know, the staples. We were talking about all those names, right? Procter Gamble, Clorox, you know, all those names, Campbell Soup. Now, you know, on a risk reward basis, you got bullish sentiment there. They're tough. So we can see some money being moved around. That's why you don't want to get too hung up on the overall markets. Okay, don't get me wrong. If you're saying to yourself right here, I want to sit on my hands because the markets come to, I agree 100%. But I'm saying, just don't get too hung up on it. If you see activity you like come into a name that's at a decent spot, you know, it's worth a look. It's definitely worth a look, because there's 100 different things going on in this market. Like IWM, that was down today, I think, right? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. So, and before you know it, okay, you're probably, I get this with the patients too. Like right here, I get a lot of times from members who follow sentiment as closely as I do. You know, it's hard to have the patience and wait for that long setup. It happens so quick, guys. It happens so quick. I mean, just think of just recently, right? We were up here thinking, you know, you had to chase. You'll never get sentiment on your side again. And then before you know it, you know, you got sentiment signals flashing green. You know, and then boom, right to overheated again. It's just the market we're in. So it happens quicker than you guys think. You know, it happens quicker than you think. What other questions you guys got for me before we wrap it up and I let you guys enjoy your summer night? On Netflix, we see a little bit of flow in Netflix every damn day. Netflix, there's some earnings bets that have been hitting the tape here and there. We saw a sweep in, what the hell was it? July 450s today. You know, earnings bets. Microsoft, believe it or not, I'm glad you mentioned it, Abby. That was one of the few that caught a real nice looking, actually 3 of them. Let me show you here. One of the few that caught legitimate bets, as opposed to just that spec action I'm telling you. Look at this guy right here. So this is on 7/3, July 3rd. Look at that. 900, a million bucks behind that sweep in October's. You know? And you can see some action underneath it, 98. So Microsoft caught some real deal action, but up here, you know, I had a little move here. So personally, I wouldn't chase it. What I would look, Abby, on the Microsoft, the way I would play it, honestly, is if it comes in, right? So similar to what we were seeing in it, look for activity there for that snapback type trade. Same type thing. So let's say Microsoft, the market tomorrow, the next day dumps, right? And you get Microsoft down a buck and change, $2, whatever, similar to this here. And you see those type of sweeps come in again, it's worth a long for a trade, a short-term trade. Right now, I don't see anything at all worthy of anything more than just a trade, guys. Yeah, AMAT, that was another name. I traded it yesterday. I had a little profit in it, and then I got a little greedy and gave it all back. But AMAT, looked interesting to me because look, like we were saying, this, it doesn't look like the overall market. That's for sure. So you're going to have to navigate earnings. That's one. Two, there was some sweeper activity yesterday, half decent. Not really that much for AMAT, but half decent. Spec action. Today was tiny. But yeah, like I was saying yesterday, if you like the name, you had some spec action there for a trade, maybe you get a little bounce, overdue bounce into earnings. Trump tariff talk, unbelievable. Like, this is unbelievable. It's almost like Groundhog Day every single week, right? Market rally, Trump talk, take it down, buy him up, market rally. It really is remarkable. You got to be careful chasing, guys. You got to be careful chasing. You have to be careful chasing out there. That's how you get caught. And I don't know how much of you guys really follow sentiment. I'm personally, we were talking about this the other day in the room. I'm being honest. I don't know. I couldn't play this game without knowing where sentiment is every day. I couldn't. I just couldn't. This whole market, revolves around investor sentiment. I don't know how traders can not even know where, have an idea where sentiment is and play this game. And it's not as easy. I get that response too. It's not as easy as, well, if the market's up, there's bullish sentiment. The market's down, it's bear. No. It's not that. It doesn't work that way. I've seen down markets where, sentiment wasn't bearish, and more than not, it led to more selling. And I've seen rallies where, investors or traders weren't believing in the rally, and sentiment, never got hot. As a matter of fact, prior to last year, investor sentiment rarely was at extreme bullish. Rarely. Going back to like 2016, 2015. Very rare. Now, coming off last year, obviously it's different. Ani's saying we are a little hot. Yeah, we're a little hot right now, Ani. We're a little hot. The squeezometer, did I post the squeezometer on private Twitter yet? We got out of the disaster zone, but we're still up there, And listen, that squeezometer, Ani, that moves around a lot, which is good for us, and has been, like you call it, has been a great compass in this market. I like that little name you gave it recently. We're talking about this, by the way, guys. Hold on. So that's where we ended up, 64. We were banging up our heads in the hot zone for a bit. So what we want to see this obviously get below neutral again. My opinion, probably, Ani, would it surprise you this thing is back into the 30s before you know it? I mean, we see it all the time. So, and it's pretty simple. Yeah, back and forth. If you look at any of the sentiment indicators, they all been moving around quite a lot. But that's good. I like that. As a trader, I like that. So basically, those of you who are asking, over here, we want to be really picky on any new long exposure as far as putting on any risk. You know what I mean? Take some profits off the table if you got them, that sort of thing. And when this thing gets, I would say probably under 40, you want to start looking. If you get it into this green zone, I told you guys, I look for just something to buy. Even if I'm early, I just look for something to get long. But that's basically, it's that simple. That's how we read it. And what it allows us to do is it prevents us. It's not easy not chasing this aggressively. It's not easy. I'm not going to lie to you. That early on in my career, that was my biggest problem. And I worked on it diligently to the point where I think I overdid it. Now, like where I should be looking around, playing nice and easy, I feel like I'm chasing and I don't participate at all. So I think I overdid it, but I was so determined to, continuously working on that and getting that right. Not chasing the move. Allow the market to set up, allow it to come to you, be ready when it does. It's always toughest to pull the trigger when you got sentiment on your side, but that's where the risk reward is in this market. Yeah, Melissa, you got to follow your plan, you got to stick to it, and that's part of this game. It's tough enough, this game, everything else, but blocking out all the noise and just sticking to the signals and things you have confidence in. Obviously the confidence has got to be there, right? Like I see it all the time with members. They need to see the squeezometer work before they have confidence in it. Once they've seen it a decent amount of time through some different market conditions, once they see the logic behind it, then that's where you got to stay determined to, as much as you can, as much as you can. And I say that because even if you're chasing here, but because of sentiment, you're not as aggressive on putting new risk on as you would be, you should be proud of that. And if you continue to work on that, you'll get better and better and better at it. Because so often this is where everybody wants to get long, man. You know it. Look around. Go on Twitter. Talk to your friends. Who's buying here? They don't want to buy here. They want to buy here all the time. All the time. And not even here. I'm not talking about today, okay, because the squeezometer was hot yesterday. Okay, so we rallied through. It got hot yesterday early on. We rallied through a hot squeezometer. So you feel like you're right, but then ultimately when that drawdown comes, you're going to realize that that's the reason why it's worth paying attention to it. Paul saying when it's at or under 30, it has without fail been a great entry indicator, at least for yeah, Paul. Yeah, it's been, again, I've been a part of markets. I'm not going to lie to you, Paul. I've been a part of markets where I had a green squeezometer and started to get long something, and the market just fall right through it. Okay, I'm being honest. But what happens is even if you're early, okay, even if you bought something into a green squeezometer, okay, and then you got another day or two of weakness there, okay, the squeeze that follows is usually strong enough that the buying you do into that weakness will be profitable. You understand what I'm saying? So in other words, just because the squeezometer is at, let's say, 30, you don't go all in at that particular moment. You're looking for something to get long. right? So for me, like, I'm looking for flow. I'm looking for sweeper activity into something I think I could get a squeeze out of. I see something I like, I'll get long, okay? Market falls 2 days later, no squeeze, and the market falls further, okay? Same process. I'm looking for activity into, something to another long position to put on. So it's like a gradual process. And another thing I realized, Paul, obviously, is the flow has been a huge help with the timing, because if a market's going to continue to fall, we're not going to see any call sweepers. You're going to see put sweepers dominate the tape, and you're not going to see any call sweeper activity out there. Hardly any. So that's also something to keep an eye on, to say, all right, maybe there's a little more downside. There's no call sweepers here. So it's the combination of the two that really work well, in my opinion, that really work well. But yeah, this squeezometer in this market has been fantastic. The squeezometer takes into account opening only, non-sweeper activity, basically what I feel is retail options activity. Does that make sense? All right, so a put to call is just put and call volume, right? There are other option indicators out there that we look at. Sentiment Trader has a lot of them that are fantastic, that have, more parameters to narrow it down to what you want to see. Okay, so there's, for example, a retail only, bought to open only put to call. That is something like what we're looking at in the squeezometer. Does that make sense, Jay? So a put to call is just simple volume, which can work well at extremes. We know that. Okay, every bottom has had a spike in put to call that I've been a part of. Everyone. All right, but I say this, sugar, but the riffraff out there, right? The retail money out there, when they're speculating in the option market, there's a lot of emotion there. There's a ton of emotion there. So that's why I'm a big believer in these indicators, and have been using them for a long, long time now. Again, I think they work best with flow as far as the timing aspect of it. But even without flow, I like I mentioned earlier, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. I don't know how you can play this game without having an idea where sentiment is. I mean, because just think of this. Like, that's me saying, let's say you want to get short, all right? And we see it all the time, guys. We talk about it in the room all the time. Like, you'll see people, and I see guys in the room doing it and ignoring the indicators, flow, whatever they're looking at, because their bias is so bearish, and then they're gone. They're not in the room anymore. But, you want to get short here, okay? You think the market's ready to break down, or your technicals, whatever the hell you're looking at, is telling you breakdown. But you got put the calls at extreme, you got the squeezometer at extreme, you got every indicator we look at bearish extreme. What's the likelihood that the market's going to fall apart here without a squeeze first? From my experience, minimal. Like, I can remember every time it has. That's how little it does. So that's why I tell you guys, is it possible that these indicators can flash signals and for it not to work? Of course. I've seen it before. But ask me, how many times has it worked? Ask me that question. Ask me how many times it's worked. And I can show you every tradable bottom here. And I can have, private Twitter members and Steam Room members to vouch for me. Almost every tradable bottom, there's been, a sentiment signal. Every single one. So that's what I think people get wrapped up in. What does it work every time? You're asking the wrong question, I think. And I think even more so, you shouldn't even be looking at it that way, no matter what your trading style is, okay? And maybe you're a fantastic trader. I would be the last person to tell you to do something different. I think you always have to have an idea where sentiment is. How can it hurt? You know, this market moves off sentiment predominantly. Exactly. It's all about probabilities. You're 100% right, Arthur. That's what this whole game is, you know? And that's what an edge is, right, Arthur? That's what an edge is. It just increases the odds, right? The probability that much more in your favor. So you can actually find a way to win consistently in this game. That's you're 100% right. That's what this game is all about. Sim is asking, hey Jay, when you post the other sentiment, not the graph one. Oh, that's the sentiment, daily sentiment index. Sim, everybody, when I managed money, everybody I know, every financial advisor, every broker, everybody I know had a subscription to that daily sentiment index. Everybody. Every professional I know follows it. So it is well known. It's really good to keep an eye on, and it measures everything, commodities, currencies, individually. Okay, it's more of, I would say, an intermediate. I wouldn't say longer term. It's tough. Everybody has a different definition of long term, but it's not this. Okay, it's not the squeezometer. This is like extreme short term. Like when we get a buy signal, we're looking for a squeeze immediately. Okay, the daily sentiment index is more based on positions. Okay, so it's more of an intermediate term indicator. And yeah, if you're asking if that's hot, let me see here. Hold on. I think I posted it on my regular Twitter too. Hold on. Oh, wait. What am I doing? Let me see if I can get there a sec. Hold on. I think I posted it last night for you guys. There it is. So he's talking about this. So basically, here's the NASDAQ and the S&P coming into today. This is Monday's close. Anything above 70, I think it is, will flash green, meaning bullish extreme. So you can see we're up there. You know, bearish extreme, you'll see red. You'll see red. Yeah, no. So basically, again, it's not where this is more of an intermediate term indicator. So I don't really trade exclusively off this, but I like to know where this is. Basically, when you see a high reading on this, yeah, you want to keep an eye more closely on your risk as far as long exposure, without a doubt. You know, without a doubt. So that's the name of the game. You know, I wouldn't take it as a sell everything signal. I wouldn't say that, but you want to be careful of a pull because things are too hot. All right, let me get to a couple more questions before we wrap it up. STNG, you still watching it? Rick, I actually own a piece of that STNG that I'm just tucking away. Don't even ask me why. For shits and giggles, kind of a lotto type thing. The shipper. Oh, you got some too? Yeah. So I tucked away some equity there. You know, I don't know how long I'm going to hang on to it, but I should have pulled the trigger when it first started catching action down at $2. I did not. So I just wanted to pick a cheap name to just tuck away, and I happened to pick this one. I call it the next dry ships. Steve is talking about NEPT. Yeah, that has the possibility without a doubt. definitely. I know a lot of you guys know this name, NEPT. Had some news in the pop. Looks like it retraced that. So if anybody's interested, that, a lot of these cheap names, that's the way I look at it. Sometimes I'll just buy some, put it away, for a little longer term type play, and hope to get lucky. That type of thing. And we've been seeing more and more, right? We've been seeing more and more of these small names catching some flow. Some of them had nice action. This TRXC, do you guys remember that? That robotics name? Wish I would have done it with that at $1.80. That was down here. So sometimes you could get lucky. Yeah, but the trick is, what I've learned is I try not to trade them, these cheap price names. If I'm going to buy it, I'm going to take a shot. Nothing too crazy. Take a shot and tuck it away type thing. Like this STNG, the recent flow has been out in October. So if you're looking on the option front, NEPT has been catching action for a while. They just keep rolling out and rolling out and rolling out until they nail something big here. That's what they're looking for. They just keep rolling their positions out. I have some August, October 5s. Oh, the STNG you're talking? Yeah, you never know, right? You never know. You never know. I've seen some of these crazy, I told you guys, the prime of my career, I nailed some home runs in these little guys. That was my bread and butter when the small caps just exploded. I would love that time to come around again. We saw an interesting bet today. I don't know if you guys saw it. Nothing big, but MDY. That's the mid caps. It doesn't catch a lot of action, but interesting that it caught a bull bet today. What was my biggest trade and how much mental? Well, Joe, my biggest trade, especially with like mental capital and all that, came on the equity front. When I was a broker, I played pretty big size. What I would do is, especially with the small caps, because like I said, that was the best time of my career. The small caps were just ridiculous then. So we'd find a $5 number catching decent action. And, some of these things would trade nice volume on the equity front. So I would go in and buy 500,000 shares for clients and, 50, 60,000 shares for myself and juggle a couple positions at a clip. I never had one big bet. I know a lot of guys who have been around a long time in this game have had that. Somebody else asked me about that recently. I've never had that big bet, big hit. I've had some nice hits. I've had some real nice hits, but nothing huge. Nothing huge. So, the answer to your question, Joey, like I said, back when I was trading client money, I would position my money with it. And that's the way generally we would play it. So, for example, buy a $5 stock and, we'd keep like maybe 60-cent stop loss on it, something like that. Sometimes even a bigger, longer leash if we thought we needed to give it that. But there was some. I'm talking, guys, you know the names now. Cena, NetEase, Sohu. Those stocks, you guys probably don't remember. NetEase was, I think, 6 and change. Cena, I had a position in Cena and Sohu at 2 and change, $2. Gary's asking, Jay, what's your hat size? Gary, you're a character. Yeah, what's my hat size? But no, with all due seriousness, and I'm not trying to sound corny. Oh, you're serious? Damn, I don't know my hat size, Gary. What do you mean? It's not adjustable? It's a fitted? I got to look. I haven't bought a fitted hat in a while. I got to check. I got a couple of them. I got to check. The bigger the better anyway. Yeah. Ask the wife. She does all the shopping. I appreciate it. I will, Gary. But seriously, on the sizing front, not to sound too corny, and you guys, most of you guys have been training a while, but if you're new, don't worry about the sizing, okay? The sizing comes when you need it to come, okay? If you need to size up, you will find a way to size up if you have the confidence in what you're doing. Okay, sizing's overrated in my opinion. That's it. And you see a lot of people taking size, they don't enjoy the game. They're stressed out. You see them take months off at a clip. They're getting stopped out, shaken out. You know, don't feel that you have to be a player in this game. You got to put on big size. It's all about consistency. Not to sound corny, I'm being honest with you guys. Anybody, okay, let's be honest. Anybody out there can find one name with decent action and size up, and if they get lucky, make a score. Okay, you want to size up, wait till we get a green squeezometer, okay, find a name that's catching the best action and load the boat. All right, and at least you got the odds on your side if you want to make that score, if you're looking to make that score. If you're looking to stick around in this game, enjoy yourself because you probably have a passion for this game like most do, like I do, sizing will be the death of you. The death of you. You want to find consistency, and then when you find that consistency, if you need to size up, you're going to need to size up some. You will find a way to do it. But about that score, we all can do it, man. We all can do it if we really want to. You know, you just got to take more risk. That's all. So if you want to make that score, wait for the green squeezometer, find a name that catches decent action, and roll the dice. You got the odds in your favor. If it clicks, you made your score. If not, you take a lump. That's part of sizing up. All right, boys and girls. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure. All right. Good luck the rest of the week. Take it easy. Let the market digest a little bit. Let's see. Maybe we see some rotation, some squeeze names and stuff like that. And, we'll take it from there. All right. Thanks for coming by, guys. Listen, wallstreetjesus.com. If you have any questions on anything we spoke about, strategy section right there. Boom. All right. You can check it out. Always a pleasure, guys. Enjoy the night.